Ariel was not a good man. The fact that he beat his wife was one that was not unknown among his extended family and friends. But it was not until after his wife escaped his evil torment that the true nature of a man's cruelty would reveal itself. And for the 3 girls he decided to inflict it upon, it was simply a case of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. This is the story of Ariel Castro and the 3 women he kidnapped and kept locked away for almost 10 years. Welcome, school friends and spook daddies, to another episode of Horror House. Thank you for joining us this week. I am Amy.
And I'm Dom. That wasn't even English.
I'm Dom. We got it. We know who you are at this stage. If you're looking to whet your true crime appetite and sink your teeth into a juicy case, then you are probably in the right place, because so are we. And we're very happy to have you. Dom, other than incapable of speaking English, how are you?
I speak my own language. Amy understands Dom.
Yeah, it's basically just extra words. You did a shortened version of I am, as well as am. I'm am, Dom. We understood
either
it's
shorter
fine.
words or adding unnecessary words. There's no in between. It swings one way or the other. I'm good. I am not coping well with this heat. I know it's a very stereotypical British thing to say. It's too hot.
We don't do the heat.
We're
not good at it.
What was it the other day? It was like, it wasn't even, temperature-wise, it wasn't even that hot. It might have been like 22 or 23 degrees Celsius. And I was like, I'm dying. And people were like, but it's 22, 23 isn't hot. And I was like, well, in many countries, no, 22 degrees Celsius is not hot. But a British 22 degrees Celsius feels like you're on the surface of the sun. It's awful.
And it's a different heat. Like, I know this is going to make me sound like such an old woman, and it's such a, like, mum thing to say. But it is a different heat. Like, when you go abroad, it's very dry heat. You're not, like, sweating. You're not getting all humid and gross. Here, it's humid, it's sticky, and it makes you feel like you need to have, like, 4 showers in a day. So it's not the same. I won't have it said that it's the same. So don't even try.
I won't have it.
Have you heard of Ariel Castro? Do you know the name?
I know the name.
Okay.
I don't really know anything about him. Or what he did, but I have definitely heard the name, because it sounds like he is someone that is quite renowned, not for good reasons. If it was good reasons, we wouldn't be talking about him on the show.
Well, no.
But
No,
I have heard of the
true.
name yet.
Cool. All right, well, shall we dive in then in that case? I've just realised that I start this case, as I always do, with when this person was born. And we are filming this today on July the 10th. Well, Ariel Castro was born on July 10th, 1960. So, happy birthday, Ariel Castro, you fucking prick. Oh, God, swearing, Amy.
Happy...
I've let myself down already.
Not so happy birthday, Ariel Castro. I hope
Not so happy birthday.
You get... I don't know where I'm going with this.
To be fair, he's not alive. He died in 2013, so doesn't really matter anyway. But completely unintentional that we happen to be recording this on what was his birthday. But he was born on July the 10th in... and also I apologise in advance. There's going to be a lot of mispronunciations in this because there's a lot of names that I don't know how to say. There's also a lot of place names I don't know how to say. So this is going to be a complete catastrophe from the offset. But he was born in Dewey, Yauco in Puerto Rico. Please don't laugh. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. If it isn't, I'm sorry. To any Puerto Ricans, please feel free to correct me. You know, I don't know what I'm doing. He went to
the Puerto Ricans have already clicked off. They've already gone.
Oh yeah, they're like, fuck this, I'm out. Oh, for God's sake, Amy, stop swearing. Anyway, he was the son of Pedro Castro and Lillian Rodriguez. His parents divorced when he was a child, and he moved to the mainland United States with his mother and 3 biological siblings. They lived in Cleveland, Ohio, where Castro's father and several other family members, were living. In total, Castro had 9 siblings, so a mixture of half and full siblings. And he graduated from Cleveland's Lincoln West High School in 1979. Castro met his girlfriend, Grimilda Figueroa, when his family moved into a house across the street from hers in the 1980s. Castro and Figueroa lived with both sets of their parents. Not sure how that worked, but there you go. I assume she lived with hers and he lived with his. I don't know really what I've written there. But basically, they lived with their parents until they got their own home at 2207 Seymour Avenue, located in Cleveland's Tremont neighborhood, in 1992. Their home was a 2-story, 1,400 square foot, 4-bedroom, 1-bathroom house with a 760 square foot unfinished basement. I don't normally give, house tours when I talk about cases, particularly. This isn't Cribs. You don't need to know the square footage of their abode. But it's particularly relevant in this case for reasons that we'll get into very shortly. I don't have any pictures. Yeah. I'll find you some. I'm sure I'll be able to, scrape some together. But yeah, that was the square footage of the house. Not massive, not tiny. Dom's like, Amy, stop talking about houses.
No, like, I did think, I was like, that was a very specific description of the basement. And then I was like, oh no, okay, no, that's a very relevant point, unfortunately. So
the house and the basement, so both parts, everything that I just said is relevant. Just assume that all of the things I say are relevant until further notice.
Will do.
According to Figueroa's sister, Elida Caraballo, I hope that's how you say it, she said that, quote, all hell started breaking loose when the couple moved into their new home. Caraballo claimed that Castro beat Figueroa, breaking her nose, ribs, and arms, and causing a blood clot on her brain that resulted in an inoperable tumor. He also threw her down a flight of stairs, and the resulting sort of impact at the bottom cracked her skull. In 1993, bear in mind they only moved in 1992, Castro was arrested for domestic violence, but was not indicted by a grand jury. So not a very nice guy, really, to his missus.
So he sounds like a very, very nice person, doesn't he?
Sounds delightful. She must have felt like a very lucky lady.
Yeah. Definitely would want to go to the pub with this guy.
Oh yeah, 100%. And we haven't even, touched the surface.
This is a mere appetizer.
Yes, it's the mere amuse-bouche to the foray of violence that is to follow. In 1996, Figueroa moved out of the house and secured custody of their 4 children. Hooray, great news. Police assisted in the move and detained Castro, but they did not press charges. Again, well done, police. Castro continued to threaten and attack Figueroa after she left him, according to her sister. And Figueroa filed charges in 2005 in, again, apologies if I pronounce this wrong, Cuyahoga County Domestic Relations Court, accusing Castro of inflicting multiple severe injuries on her and of, quote, frequently abducting their daughters. Obviously, bear in mind, she gained custody of the kids, so any time that he took them without her permission would have been considered. The court granted her a temporary restraining order against Castro, but it was dismissed just a few months later. And unfortunately, as a result of all of the violence and of that incident where he pushed her down the stairs, Figueroa actually died in 2012 due to complications from the brain tumor that resulted in that. So she did get away from him, and she did get custody of the kid, but ultimately it was something that he did that led to her death.
Yeah.
Which is very sad.
Good grief. Yeah. What an absolute trash human being.
Right.
Back to
what a douche.
Back to normal service. We had a a little bit of a palate cleanser episode last week. Now, normal service has resumed.
Yeah.
We're back to talking about
Yeah.
trash human.
We couldn't stay away from it for too long. People would go, hang on a minute,
No, we
what is this
couldn't.
podcast?
Yeah, no, that is very true. That is very true. Yeah, 100%. No, that is sad. That is sad. You know, to suffer like that, and have that as a result. Yeah, that's very, very sad indeed.
Yeah.
She deserved far, far better.
Especially to escape it as well. To go through
Oh
that,
yeah,
manage
yeah,
to get away from it all, and then have it still basically come back to, well, finish you off is
yeah,
just kind of adds insult to injury, I
yeah.
think.
She didn't really escape. She just temporarily, I suppose, got away for a little bit.
Mm.
Unfortunately,
Yeah, exactly. Bless her. Castro worked as a bus driver for the Cleveland Metropolitan School District until he was fired in
God.
November 2012 for, quote, bad judgment, including making an illegal U-turn with children on the bus, using his bus to go grocery shopping, leaving a child on the bus while he went for lunch, and leaving the bus unattended while he took a nap at home. I wonder why he was sacked. I mean, that seems like a totally normal bus drivery thing to do when you're in charge of children in a bus. Why not?
That's I shouldn't laugh, but some of those are quite funny. He's not a very good bus
Yeah,
driver
I
by the
mean,
sounds of
come on.
it.
No.
Imagine
I
being
think
like,
not my favourite one, because obviously it's bad, but I think my favourite out of all of them is leaving a child on the bus while he went for lunch. Number
yeah,
one, it's a school
that's what I'm
bus.
thinking.
What the hell are you doing in the middle of the day? Like, why is there a kid on the bus in the middle of the day? Why are you driving the bus in
That
the middle
is
of the
true.
day? You drop
Yeah,
them off
yeah,
in the
that
morning,
is
you pick
very
them up in the
true.
afternoon. What the hell are you doing with lunch? I'm so
The kid
confused.
was like, "We've passed the school a few times now. I'm going to be late for like the first period. We should probably get to." It's like, no, I'm hungry. I
No,
need to go to
I
my
need
McDonald's
lunch.
drive-through. Sit down and shut up, Timmy.
This is what I
You
mean.
can
Like,
miss your first period.
did he just forget to drop the kid off? Like, had he been driving around with him on the bus since morning? And he just
And I'm
looked in the back
assuming
and
that
gone, oh shit, I forgot one.
when did he notice that there was still a kid on the bus? Or
I mean,
did-
maybe he didn't notice. Maybe as all of the things that Ariel Castro did, he was actually innocent of leaving a kid on the bus because he didn't realise he was there. Who knows? We'll never know. Doesn't matter. He's dead.
That's not good bus driving from Castro.
It's definitely not
How
good
did he
bus
get his
driving. You
bus
shouldn't be doing it
license?
anyway. Oh, God
That's what I
knows.
want to know.
Who knows?
Do you reckon he went to Legoland and got one of those like Lego driving licenses and was like, I am a certified vehicle motorist. Can I drive your school bus, please?
Potentially. It definitely sounds like something was a bit dodge. Anyway, he didn't have the best, career and lifestyle anyway. He was earning
No.
$18.91 per hour when he was discharged. At the time of his arrest, Castro's home was in foreclosure after 3 years of unpaid real estate taxes. So definitely wasn't
Oh
in a
dear.
good place. So obviously with him being alone, his wife had left him, she took the kids. He's lost his job as a bus driver. Something obviously, I don't know what you want to call it. Let's say clicked in his brain. And he decided that he was going to essentially begin kidnapping women. Castro kidnapped his victims by offering them a ride. He drove them to his home at 207 Seymour Avenue, the home that he had shared with his girlfriend previously. He lured them inside and then took them to the basement and restrained them. The first of these women was Michelle Knight. She disappeared on August the 23rd, 2002, after leaving a cousin's house. She was 21 years old at the time. On the day of her disappearance, she was scheduled to appear in court for a child custody case involving her son Joey, who was in the custody of the state, but obviously never showed up because she never quite got there. Following Knight's rescue, police acknowledged that limited resources had been spent on investigating her disappearance, and this was in part because she was an adult. Authorities believed that she had run away voluntarily due to anger over losing her son. So because she didn't show up at court And because, she's an adult, she can essentially do what she wants. Initially, there wasn't much effort put into finding her because it was assumed that she was just upset, which, isn't ideal, but also kind of understandable. It's not often that I say that the lack of police work is understandable, but I think in this situation, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I would agree.
According to the Cleveland Deputy Police Chief Ed Tamba, Michelle Knight was the focus of, quote, very few tips, and some criticised her subsequent removal from the National Crime Information Centre database 15 months after she disappeared as the reason that she was basically unknown when she was rescued. No one was looking for her after that point. She went on the missing persons list for a little while, and well, I say a little while, 15 months is a long time, but not long when you consider that she was still missing. And then she was taken off of it. So when eventually they were found, no one really knew who she was. No one, had been looking for her, and the few that had presumably thought she was dead. So it's kind of sad.
Yeah.
Michelle Knight is probably in the worst situation of the three people that he took.
Yeah.
The second woman he kidnapped was Amanda Marie Berry. She disappeared on April the 21st, 2003, so just under a year later, the day before her 17th birthday. She was last heard from at around 8 p.m. when she called her sister to tell her that she was getting a ride home from her job at Burger King to a local bar where she was going to meet some friends. The FBI initially considered her a runaway until a week after her disappearance, when an unidentified male used her cell phone to call her mother. He said, quote, "I have Amanda, she's fine, and will be coming home in a couple of days." It wasn't an unknown male. It was at the time, but it was obviously not now. It was Castro trying to presumably throw her mother off the scent.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
say throw off the scent.
That was
Obviously,
very
he's just
much,
admitted that he has her.
I know what you mean, though.
The third young lady that he took was Georgina Lynn de Jesus, which I have to think about before I say because I'm not very good at it. She went missing on the 2nd of April 2004, so again, pretty much a year later. At age 14, she was the youngest of his victims. She was last seen
14?
at a
Oh,
payphone.
that's so young.
14, I know, so young, so young. She was last seen at a payphone at around 3 p.m. while on her way home from middle school at West 105th Street and Lorraine Avenue. At the time, she was friends with one of Castro's daughters, Arlene, which I don't think he realised at the time. Shortly before Gina disappeared, she and Arlene had called Arlene's mother, so Grimilda, his partner who eventually passed away in 2012, for permission to have a sleepover at De Jesus' house. But Figueroa replied that they could not and that the two girls had to part ways. Arlene, so his daughter, was the last person to see De Jesus before her disappearance, which is, I don't want to call it ironic, but it is, somewhat ironic.
Yeah. There's a little bit of irony in there.
Tragic irony, but irony less.
Yeah.
Yeah. De Jesus was under the impression that Castro was picking her up to drop her off at home, and she trusted Castro because she was friends with his teenage daughter. Why wouldn't you trust your friend's dad? No one witnessed her abduction, and an Amber Alert was not issued, which angered her father, mostly because, initially she thought she was being dropped off by a friend. He said, sorry, this is De Jesus' father. He said in 2006, quote, "The Amber Alert should work for any missing child. Whether it's an abduction or a runaway, a child needs to be found. We need to change this law," which I think is probably pretty accurate considering.
Yeah. Like 100%. That's something that you do sharpish, is you put out an alert. 100% agree. It doesn't matter if it's an abduction, doesn't matter if the kids just ran away for whatever reason. It's still a missing child at the end of the day, and you need to act quickly. It reminds me of a little bit of when I talked about, well, this was a while ago. This is one of my early episodes, I think. when I talked about Johnny Gosh, I think it was, and they didn't report him as a missing person for the first like 72 hours,
Yeah,
um, which blew my mind. I was like, you waited 3 days to report him as missing after he
so
goes
long.
missing. Like, it's wild. And obviously that changed, and things, new laws came in and stuff. But it just reminds me of that a little bit. It's like, why why are you doing things that delay being able to find these missing people?
Yeah,
Act on it straight
absolutely.
away.
It's actually a common misconception in the UK. I don't know about America, but in the UK, there's this idea that for someone, an adult especially, to be a missing person, they have to be missing for 24 hours. And that's actually not the case. A missing person is a missing person. As stupid as this sounds, a missing person is a missing person if they are missing. So if you're expecting a family member or a loved one to have been somewhere at a certain time and they didn't show up with no explanation and you've got no way of contacting them or asking them, then the police will take that seriously. They will consider that a missing person and they will look into it for you. It's a very common belief that it has to be 24 hours. If they're a fully grown adult, then they have to have not been on the grid for 24 hours, and that's just not the case at all. So it's it's something worth mentioning, I think, to know that if you ever are in I mean, hopefully no one ever will be, but if you are in a situation where you're worried about someone and you can't find them, then it's worth reporting as soon as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
A year after De Jesus' disappearance, the FBI released a composite sketch and a description of a male suspect, described as, quote, Latino, 25 to 35 years of age, 5 feet 10 inches, 165 to 185 pounds, with green eyes, a goatee, and possibly a pencil thin beard. According to
Okay.
court records, Castro was 5 feet 7 inches, 179 pounds, with brown eyes and a goatee. So pretty close. In terms of
Yeah.
description, not bad. Which, if the drawing was accurate, maybe a bit surprising that he wasn't found sooner.
Yeah. Yeah. That I mean, when there's descriptions that are quite in depth and, you're like, it would be quite difficult for you not to catch them relatively quickly. Yeah, you're like, okay, so I don't know what's going on with your police work, but bloody hell. It's all McClue.
Yeah.
It's all McClue. It's
It's
all
all
his. It's
McClue.
his fault.
McClue's at play once again. We just can't get rid of him. He just does rubbish work. We just can't sort him
Yeah.
out. De Jesus was featured in the America's Most Wanted segment, and it linked her to Berry, so the second girl that he had taken. The disappearances received regular media attention into 2012, while the families held public vigils. Castro attended 2 of these vigils. Reportedly, he participated in a search party and he tried to get close to the De Jesus family, obviously because they were known to him. Sorry, he was known to them. He
Yeah.
tried to help them and get close. Um, Castro's son, Anthony, was a journalism student in 2004, and he interviewed De Jesus' mother for an article about the disappearances in the Plain Press newspaper. Police kept the investigation open and offered a $25,000 reward for information.
Yeah.
Pretty, I don't want to call it ballsy because that's almost giving him credit for it, but like pretty freaking arrogant to go to the
Yeah.
family and say,
Yeah.
"Oh, let me help you look. Let me support you. Let me try and do something to help," knowing the entire time that she's in your house.
Yeah. It's so scummy, isn't it? And like I said, it's so arrogant and just it's another insult to injury for the families and for the victims. And yeah, it's just such a scummy thing to do. Just be like, oh, I'll help you search, and you're like, oh, when obviously in reality you're like, you know exactly where the person is, you know exactly what's happened to them. But it's like, I don't know if it's they get a satisfaction from, families believing them that they want to help, and obviously not knowing that they're the reason why this has all happened. But either way, it's just like you said, it's arrogant and it's scummy, and yeah, it's just dickhead behavior. Dickhead behavior.
Dickhead behavior, indeed. Now that we know the identities of his victims, shall we take a little break before we dive into what happened in his house?
Yeah, I think I can mentally prepare myself in the break for for the
That's a good plan.
events that transpired in that house.
Good plan. Let's seal ourselves, and we'll see you back here in a. Welcome back to part 2 of the Ariel Castro story. Dom, how are you? Did you enjoy your break?
I did. We talked about takeaway, which made me
We did.
now also want to get takeaway, and I probably shouldn't because I'm literally sitting next to 2 KFC bags, and I'm pretty sure there's a few McDonald's bags littered in my room somewhere. So I probably shouldn't, really, but I probably am going to.
Yeah. Why not? I've been dieting and I feel like I've earned a treat. So I'm going to get a takeaway. It's probably going to be. Oh, do you know
Yeah.
what? Now that you said it, I kind of want KFC. You've influenced me.
I have been on a KFC kick, and I don't know why, but yeah, the past few times I've got takeaway, it's been KFC, like a Zinger Tower box meal, or with a flaming mini wrap.
KFC's great, although other takeaway outlets are available.
We have a wide choice of takeaway outlets. It's not just KFC.
Yeah, we do. Cool. So we start again, Amy. What's going on? Shall we find out what Ariel Castro did with these young women is so bad?
I suppose if we have to, yeah. like
We
we said in
probably
the
do
break,
have to.
the things we do for you people. I'm joking. I love our listeners.
In the name of content. Ugh.
In the name of content.
Disgusting. Anyway, upon being kidnapped, Castro took Michelle Knight to the upper floor of his house, tied her hands and feet together, and pulled her up using her hands, feet, and neck. He left her there for 3 days without food. Prosecutors at Castro's sentencing wrote that diaries kept by his victims, quote, speak of forced sexual conduct, being locked in a dark room, anticipating the next session of abuse, dreams of someday escaping and being reunited with family, being chained to a wall, being held like a prisoner of war, missing the lives they once enjoyed, and emotional abuse, Castro's threat to kill them, being treated like animals, continuous abuse, and desiring freedom. So that was all the things that were mentioned in the girls' diaries.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me with any of those things, to be perfectly honest.
No, it's definitely pretty harrowing list of things to have in your diary. I keep a diary. It's mostly chatting about basically the same stuff I was putting in there when I was 13. Like, oh my God, this boy doesn't like me. And in, comparison, pointless. Just the most stupid diary that doesn't matter. And these poor girls are writing about these kinds of things. It does give you some perspective, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
The women were kept in locked bedrooms, one each. Bear in mind what I said earlier. Everything's relevant, Dom. That's why I told you the house had 4 bedrooms, because they all had a room each, and he had one for himself. In the bedrooms, they were forced to use plastic toilets that were, quote, emptied infrequently. They were fed 1 meal a day and were allowed out to shower twice a week at most.
Oh,
Not nice condition.
no.
A lot worse than prison and a lot worse than most animals.
Yeah, absolutely. But as someone who like feels like if I don't shower daily, I feel absolutely grimy. Like I obviously, you know, I can't really compare. But yeah, just even something like not being allowed to shower.
It's just a violation of human rights, isn't it? It was a way that he had power over them, um, which is just horrible. But I would love to say that it's the worst of it, and unfortunately it isn't. Knight told police that Castro had impregnated her at least 5 times and had induced miscarriages each time through beatings, hitting her with dumbbells, punching her, and slamming her against
Holy
walls.
shit.
He also, as soon as he found out that she was pregnant, started starving her in the hopes that it would make, a miscarriage easier to, induce.
Yeah.
Knight's grandmother told reporters that she would require facial reconstruction surgery due to the beatings that she endured and had lost hearing in one ear. They were so bad. At one point during her captivity, Knight had a pet dog, but Castro killed it by snapping its neck after it bit him while trying to protect her.
As soon as you said dog, I was like, he's going to kill the dog as well, isn't he?
Yeah.
I was hoping that there would be some positive, like that the dog would survive or something. Not even that. We can't even get a silver lining that the dog didn't die.
No, there isn't one. There isn't one, fortunately. I know, but buckle in, Dom, buckle in. The end is near, don't worry. On Christmas Day 2006, Castro allegedly ordered Knight to assist in the birth of Berry's child, so Amanda was the second girl that he had taken, the 16-year-old, which took place in a small inflatable swimming pool, and he threatened to kill Knight if the baby did not survive. At one point, the baby stopped breathing, but Knight was able to resuscitate her. Castro very occasionally took Berry's daughter out of the house, including to visit his mother. She called him daddy, and she called Castro's mother grandmother. In 2013, he showed one of his adult daughters, his, normal adult daughters, a picture of the child and said that she was his girlfriend's daughter from a previous relationship. And he had told others that she was his granddaughter. So there was always a story as to, who she was, but
Yeah.
whatever. But she didn't go to school. She wasn't allowed to do that. It was actually Berry herself that taught her daughter how to read and write. But Castro, saw fit to take her out and pretend that, she was someone
Of
else's
course.
kid or his granddaughter.
I wanted to kind of throw up a little bit when you said that she called him daddy. I'm not going to lie. Oh, there's something about that word. Just,
it's not untrue. He did father
it's
her.
not untrue, no. But I don't know.
But you need to separate the daddies in this situation.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, even dad, I wouldn't have taken particularly well, but I would have taken it a little bit better than daddy, I think.
Yeah, it's just not nice. It is.
No.
According to a statement from the Cleveland Police Department, officers visited Castro's home only once following the kidnappings to discuss a completely unrelated incident. Castro did not appear to be home at the time and was later interviewed elsewhere. Neighbours claimed to have called the police about suspicious activity observed at the home, but police have said that they have no record of any such calls. How convenient.
I don't know what to say.
There's nothing to say, is there? The police were standing potentially on the other side of a wall to a kidnapping victim and just didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Granted, it was an unrelated incident. Let's
just...
be fair. It was an unrelated incident. They didn't have any reason to search the house. So it's maybe not one of our classic instances of bad police work. But to those girls, if they were aware that there was a policeman outside,
yeah,
can you imagine how horrible that must have felt when they just weren't rescued?
Oh yeah, 100%. And like you say, I don't know. We don't know if it falls into the category of ballad. Fucking hell. Bad police work.
Okay.
But is it lazy police work? Is it just a bit naive police work? I don't know. I don't know what to call it. I don't know what to call it. I don't know if it's bad. I don't know if it's just a bit lackadaisical. Either way, it left something to be desired.
Yeah, there's definitely something up. If that's that situation's been allowed to occur and nothing's come about as a result of it, then something's definitely up, I think. Castro's son, Anthony, reported that there were certain areas of the house that were locked and inaccessible. So his son had been in the house, while the girls were there, but he wasn't allowed in certain rooms. He also mentioned on
Yeah.
occasion, 3 weeks before the women's escape, when Castro asked him if Berry would ever be found. Anthony said, oh, sorry. Okay. I've completely read this wrong. So Anthony was having a conversation with Castro about whether or not he thought that Berry would ever be found. Anthony said to him that he thought that Berry was most likely dead. To which Castro responded, quote, "Oh, really? You think so?"
That's no, that's not at all low key from Castro there.
Um,
Not at all
ugh.
suspicious.
It's just scummy, isn't it? It's just not. It's just not
Yeah.
nice.
No.
You
No,
know,
it's not.
it's very scummy. But this story has a somewhat happy ending, and we're going to dive into it right now. On May the 6th, 2013, Berry was finally able to make contact with Castro's neighbours, leading to her escape with her 6-year-old daughter, and then the inevitable rescue of DeJesus and Knight by authorities. According to police, Castro had left the house that day, and Berry realised that he had failed to lock the big inside door, even though the exterior door was bolted. She did not attempt to break through the outer door because she thought that Castro, quote, was testing her, according to the police report. Previously, when they looked into it, Castro had tested the women by leaving the house partially unlocked and exits unsecured. If they attempted to escape, he then beat them, starved them, whatever he do to get the point across.
Yeah.
So instead of
Yeah.
trying to break out, Berry screamed for help when she saw the neighbours through the screen. Her neighbour and, quite frankly, absolute legend, Angel Cordero, responded to the screaming, but was unable to communicate with Berry because he spoke very little English. He went to get his neighbour, Charles Ramsey, who joined him at the house and went to the front door. They kicked a hole through the bottom of the storm door, and Berry crawled through carrying her 6-year-old daughter. Ramsey said that Berry told him that she and her child were being kept inside the house against her will. Upon being freed, she went to the house of another Spanish-speaking neighbour and, with Ramsey's assistance, called 911, saying, quote, "Help me, I've been kidnapped and I've been missing for 10 years. I'm here, I'm free now."
That sounds I might have heard that like recording somewhere. I'm not sure where. It might have been on a documentary or it might have been on a YouTube video. But that sounded very familiar. But what a feeling though. Like I can't imagine the just elation that was going through her at that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's impossible to imagine it, isn't it? You've had 10 years of your life taken away from you and you've suddenly just gotten away from the man that did it. And
Yeah.
I mean, she must have felt somewhat safe with the neighbours, so she, was confident enough to say it. And the great thing is as well, you also have the added extra, if you like, of yes, you're now out, but now you get to explain that there's 2 other people in the house and that they need rescuing as well. So you get to kind of be there for them as well, which is
Yeah.
obviously fantastic. And what happened? Police entered the house soon after to find DeJesus and Knight, both of whom were obviously overjoyed to see police. Knight's reported to have repeatedly been screaming, quote, "You have saved me." And all 3 women and Berry's 6-year-old daughter were taken to hospital just to kind of absorb the shock and give them physicals to make sure that they were okay. So
Yeah.
I just keep thinking, when I was writing the outline for this, I just kept thinking, when they were all on their way to the hospital, in with police, with, essentially other humans, because, they hadn't seen other humans for quite some time. That must just been so overwhelming
Oh, yeah.
in a
Oh,
good
God, yeah.
way,
Yeah,
but overwhelming.
absolutely. And it must have been, like, a mix of emotions. I can imagine there might have been a little bit of fear, potentially, because, they've been locked away for 10 years, and they're going out into the world, which wouldn't have been the same as it was 10 years before that. So I can imagine there was some apprehension,
Yeah.
and maybe some fear, and how to sort of get back into society in a way.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think that would be perfectly normal. How much changes in 10 years? So this happened in 2013. So it's been 10 years since the girls were rescued. And how much has changed in that time? Even with us having access to it, just think back to 10 years ago and what we didn't have, what we did have, all of these different things. So for that to have happened entirely without having access to anything, so no internet, no TV, no, newspapers even, so much would have changed. And that's before you've even thought about the fact that you're now not a captive. You're free. You don't
Yeah,
have to stay in one room. It's just it's unimaginable. You just can't picture
yeah,
what that must feel like.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Even little things, like you say, getting used to having freedoms that you haven't had for 10 years.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot. But of course, it's very important this man gets his comeuppance. Castro was arrested in a McDonald's parking lot shortly after the victims were rescued. He was charged with 4 counts of kidnapping and 3 counts of rape on May the 8th, which carry prison sentences of 10 years to life in Ohio. It was reported that Castro recalled each of the 3 abductions in great detail during his interrogation, and indicated that they were unplanned crimes of opportunity, which does sort of make sense. I mean, otherwise, why stop at 3? Why did it kind of makes sense. According to sources, Castro did not have an exit plan, and believed that he would eventually be caught. He was aware that one day this all had to sort of end. He referred to himself as, quote, cold-blooded and a sex addict. Police found a suicide note in the house, in which he discussed the abductions and wrote that his money and possession should be given to the kidnapped women if he were ever caught. So I don't know if he 100% was remorseless. Not that I'm excusing it. I mean, you still done something terrible. But
Yeah,
he was
yeah.
clearly having some feelings of guilt, which isn't necessarily something that we see often in these cases.
No, to be honest, I can't think of any cases where they've had some sort of remorse. Yeah, none spring to mind, unfortunately. They've all shared the common trait of being quite proud of what they've done, unfortunately.
Um, Castro made his first court appearance at Cleveland Municipal Court on the 9th of May, where his bail was set at $2 million per kidnapping charge, adding to a total of $8 million. Obviously, the 3 girls plus the little girl as well. Prosecutors intended to seek the death penalty against Castro, and additional charges were reported to be pending, including aggravated murder for the intentional miscarriages. So the miscarriages that he sort of induced, those were murder, attempted murder, assault, and a charge for each instance of rape, and a kidnapping charge for each day that the victim was held. So in a minute, I'm going to give you some numbers in terms of charges here. Just think about the fact that they are basically a kidnapping charge per day, and a rape charge for every instance of rape. So it's a lot of charges, basically, is what I'm trying to say. On May the 14th, Castro's attorney said that he would plead not guilty to all charges if indicted for kidnapping and rape. Not sure how you would think you would get away with that, pleading not guilty, but whatever.
it's an interesting strategy. Not sure if
Yeah.
it's not particularly a good one, but it's an interesting one.
Uh, yeah. I mean, I think you did do it, Castro, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I like you said, I don't particularly know how he could have swung that defense successfully, but I mean, like you said, defense lawyers are going to try what they can, aren't they, to get their man or woman off the hook.
On July 12th, again, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing this wrong, but a Cuyahoga County grand jury returned a true bill of indictment for the remainder of the period after February 2007. It brought the total of counts to 977. So that was 512 counts of kidnapping. Again, one for each day that he had the girls captive. 446 counts of rape. 7 of gross sexual imposition. 6 of felonious assault. 3 of child endangerment. 2 of aggravated murder. And 1 of possession of criminal tools. And a partridge in a pear tree. That was a terrible joke. I'm sorry.
That's a hell of a list. That's a hell of a list. I think that might be.
Yeah.
Is that the most amount of charges that we've ever discussed regarding someone?
Potentially. I mean, it all relates to the same crime, but it's the fact that the lawyers, the prosecution, they really wanted to nail him. So they went for all these individual counts of kidnapping for every day that they were kidnapped, or, rape every time they were raped, and they wanted to make sure that this guy was going to prison, which I think is perfectly fair considering.
Yes.
And they wanted, the maximum charge. They wanted him to get the death penalty. That's what they were aiming for. So these sorts of numbers was another tool that they used to be able to do that.
Yeah.
All of these
Yeah.
different incidences. Obviously there are murder charges here, but there's not murder in the sense that he actually murdered one of these women. It was because of causing the miscarriages. So this is all kidnapping and sexual assault, pretty much.
They're going for the jugular. I like it.
Indeed. Castro pleaded guilty on July 26th to 937 of the 977 charges against him. At this point, why bother arguing the numbers? You're basically going to prison. But he pled guilty to the charges of kidnapping, rape, and aggravated murder. But this was part of a plea bargain, which called for consecutive sentences of life in prison plus 1,000 years, all without parole, which sounds like a horrible sentence. But bear in mind, the other option was death. So he took all of those charges plus 1,000 years.
I don't know if a death penalty would have been too kind. Part of me is like, I like that he didn't, or he got essentially a life without any possibility of parole. Because I kind of want him to suffer in prison. Him having the death penalty just doesn't seem like, and I'm not going to go into the whole, is the death penalty good? Should it be a thing? Should it not be a thing? Blah, 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 blah. I think a life in prison without the possibility of parole is the right choice. Partly because as well, let's face it, once the inmates figure out what he's done to get there, it's not going to be a particularly enjoyable time.
No, exactly. And, again, we're not going to have the debate about whether or not the death penalty is the right thing to do in these situations, or whether or not imprisoning someone for that long is the right thing to do in this situation. But this is certainly not someone that you're going to want to get off lightly. He needs to take his punishment. And I think this is quite fitting. Alongside his punishment, as part of the plea deal, he also forfeited his right to appeal. So he'll never be able to, get that sentence reduced or anything like that, or overturned. Not that he would. And he also forfeited the right to profit in any way due to his crime. So he couldn't write any books about himself like that. That was not part of his plea deal.
Good.
He also forfeited all of his assets, including the Seymour house, which was demolished. Castro was told by the judge, Michael Russo, quote, "You will not be getting out. Is that clear?" To which Castro responded, quote, "I do understand that, Your Honor." Castro also made He also made comment about his, quote, "addiction to pornography and sexual problems," but was cut off by the judge, who said these issues could be discussed later and were no longer relevant. Before he was sentenced fully and got his, 1,000+ years, Castro addressed the court for nearly 20 minutes, in which he said he was a, quote, "good person" and, quote, "not a monster," but that he was addicted to sex and also pornography and had practiced the art of masturbation from a young age. I don't know at what point you would think this would help. He also claimed that he'd never beaten or tortured the women. Obviously, that's proven to be not true. And insisted that, quote, "most of the sex he had with them was, quote, consensual." He shifted between apologizing and blaming the FBI for not catching him. He referenced the fact that the FBI had been to his house and not seen anything. So he sort of partially blamed them. As well as blaming the victims themselves for getting into a car with a stranger.
Of course.
So I don't know. He was definitely trying to blame other people. But he summed it all up by saying something that honestly just creeps me out so much. Like, I read this and it gave me shivers. He said, quote, "I hope they can find it in their hearts to forgive me, because we had a lot of harmony going on in the home."
Right.
How deluded do you have to be?
Okay.
How deluded do you have to be to think that the 3 women that you've kidnapped and are holding against their will are having a nice, peaceful time with you?
Yeah, exactly. It was all just one big party. We're all just one big happy family, really. I'm not. I'm not often stumped for words. Mm.
It's pretty shocking. He clearly thinks that there are some elements of what he did that weren't wrong. I mean, he denied beating the women.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but you did. You literally beat one of those
Yeah.
women multiple times to the point of miscarriage. So how can you say that that didn't happen? Or then how can you go on to say that, oh, there was harmony? They were fine. I mean, that's just not the case. It's just not real. Definitely arguments to be made that he is not mentally all there.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. He's the whole fucking picnic short of the picnic, not just a sandwich. Yeah. It's it seems like a very odd time to lie. Like,
Yeah.
why lie now? That it seems like a very weird time to do it. And just the goal to lie, just the goal to be like, I didn't do any of these things. We were one big happy family. They were happy. They loved living in the house. It's I just don't understand it. And then essentially just to be like, you know, oh, but I have but I had a sex addiction. That makes this a
Oh,
little
that's
bit
fine then.
less bad. Like, what?
No. No, it doesn't. It
What?
doesn't make it any less bad. I
Like,
do partially think that
no.
maybe he was trying to make some of these comments to make his time in prison a bit easier. Like, maybe if people in
Yeah.
prison didn't think he was that bad of a guy, he would get off a bit lighter. I don't know. But essentially, he was trying to defend himself after the court case, essentially. Like, you're waiting for sentencing. You've already been told that you're guilty. There's no
Yeah.
point now. You just got to take whatever they give you, which happened to be 1,000 years, which obviously he didn't serve. He did die in prison in 2013, I believe, by suicide. Although I haven't actually got that written down. But I think he did commit suicide.
Like you say, it's a weird time to try and dig yourself out of the hole that you've made.
Yeah,
You've been given life plus 1,000 years. I think the boat of trying to lessen that or plead insanity or something has very much passed. You've made your bed, and now you have to lie in it.
For 1,000 years.
Yeah. And it's not going to be a comfortable bed because it's going to be a prison bed. So
Exactly.
not
So
amazing.
fuck you, Ariel Castro.
Not amazing sleeps. Yes. Oh yeah, 100%. 100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And hopefully the women that he he did this to are out now and living full and happy lives, because that's, exactly what they deserve. Georgina De Jesus was born in 1990, which is the same year that I was born, so she'd be 33 now. And the fact that all of that has happened to her in the same amount of time that I've been alive, if I think about the fact that if it had been me, I would have lost 10 years of my life. It's I can't get my head around that, So
Yeah.
I can only hope that she is, all three of the girls, and obviously the daughter as well, are out there living as best life as they possibly can, considering everything that they had to go through. But this is the story of Ariel Castro, not too distant past, only 10 years ago. So I hope you enjoyed that, Dom. Hope you learned something.
I loved it. No, it's we don't normally do recent cases. We normally do well, at least I tend to do cases that are a little bit further back. So it's kind of nice to talk about one that's in the in the not too distant past. And I knew the name. Like I said, I know the quote that you said, or that one of the ladies said, but I didn't know too much about it. But yeah, Ariel Castro is an absolute scumbag human.
Agreed. We don't agree often, Dom, but we agree on this.
I'm always right. That's why we don't agree.
Right. Okay. You keep telling yourself that, hon. You wanna see us out? Bring it on home. See us out for the week.
Yes, I will happily see us out. Thank you for listening this week. Normal service resumed. A little bit of a heavier true crime centered episode. Next week will also be a bit of a heavier true crime centered episode. But thank you for listening to our episode about Ariel Castro. Also, I was going to say this at the beginning, and then I just forgot. Thank you to everyone who's subscribed to the YouTube channel. I'm not sure what it's on. I think last time I looked, it was up to 9 or something like that. But thank you for subscribing. Thank you for watching our first YouTube episode. We hope you enjoyed. We hope that it was nice to sort of see faces, because obviously if you listen, to the podcast normally, you get our voices. But if you've ever wondered, what it's like to actually watch us, you can. So I hope you enjoyed our debut YouTube episode. Please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Tell other people to subscribe if you haven't told other people to subscribe. And leave feedback about the videos, because, if there's things that you would like to see a little bit different, I'm all for sort of changing things and seeing what works and seeing what could be changed, because we want you to enjoy the video episodes. So just wanted to touch on that. But if you want to support us, there is the Instagram page. So give that a follow at horrorhouse_pod. You can also rate on Spotify. You can rate and review on Apple Podcasts and the website. And you can also follow us on whatever YouTube. Follow us on YouTube and subscribe, obviously. But whatever podcast app you listen to, follow us on there as well. If you want to support us financially and throw us a little bit of money, we are struggling content creators after all, then you can do that by getting us some merch, or you can warm Amy's cold heart and buy us a coffee, because Amy loves coffee.
Yes, please.
And I'm sure
Thank you.
she would be very much appreciated. But as I say, thank you for listening. listening/watching this week. And we hope to see you next week. Until then, all that's left to say from me is stay spooky.
Stay spooky, you sexy bunch.
Yes, sexy, sexy people, you.
All I can think about is how bad I want a KFC. That's it.
But
I
now
can't think of
I'm
anything
gonna
else.
get takeaway. Oh, dearie me.
Can't work under these chickenless conditions.